This afternoon we're speaking with Professor David Osterberg with the University of Iowa. Professor Osterberg, could you let us know about some of the research that the university is doing regarding environmental health?
Sure. And my university is lucky enough to have two federally funded centers. And the requirements of both of these centers, the funding comes from the National Institutes of Health, is that we do outreach. We try to translate our research to people, but also we're interested in this community involvement. It's supposed to be bi-directional. We find issues that are important to the community and we try to find answers. Water quality is an obvious one for the state of Iowa, so we've done a fair amount of work on that.
Can state legislators take advantage of this research that the university is doing?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's one of the reasons people pay for research. They ought to be getting something back for it, and whether it's federally funded, like we are, or state funded, folks know things, and often there are questions that we can answer. And when it comes to water quality in Iowa, it tends to be agriculture, just because my state of Iowa tends to be agriculture. 36 million acres in that state, 24 million of those 36, corn or soybeans. Not agriculture. Agriculture is bigger than that for pasture and everything, but just those two crops. Consequently, when you do that, you're going to have a lot of enrichment of those crops getting away from you and into rivers. And that's what we've talked about.
So for the most part, it sounds like it's the community itself that helps define your research agenda for the university.
Well, they do. And in fact, there's an example of where they've specifically done that. The fracking industry needs sand. It's a very particular kind of sand. It's crystalline silica. It doesn't exist in every place, so it's not sand and gravel that pretty much exists in every county in the United States. This particular stuff exists in just 3 counties in Iowa. One of the organizations from one of those counties wrote to us and said, "Can you help us answer this question? Since this is crystalline silica, can it get into the air and have an effect on us when we live nearby a new industry coming in?"
What are some of the biggest results you have learned about the impacts of environmental health activities on the state and really specifically to the agricultural community?
Yeah, well, again, these two counties, Wenatchee County, Allamakee County in the state of Iowa, both of them are counties that are dependent on recreation. If you have a trout stream in the state of Iowa, it's in one of those counties. And consequently, the industry there is a recreational industry. So when citizens heard that we may be seeing some sand mining moving out of Wisconsin coming to Iowa, they went to their local elected officials, their supervisors, saying, "We want a timeout. We want you to pass a moratorium that nothing happens until we can study this." And because it was so important to the entire county, the industry of the county, they did that. And in the meantime, one of the counties has now finished writing new ordinances that are quite protective of neighbors. So if sand mining comes to Iowa, it's going to look different from the way it's looked in Wisconsin.
And you're able to provide this research really in a nonpartisan manner.
Sure, you have to. And so the question for us was, the issues really are water. They're trout fishing. They're the fact that you would be mining some beautiful areas that are the landscape of that area. But the question they had for us was, what do you know about air emissions? And we happen to know a lot about air emissions. We're just so happy when citizens ask us a question and we know the answer to it rather than trying to send them someplace else. That's an example of how the citizenry comes to us for answers that we have to give in obviously a nonpartisan manner, because this is science. We go out and we're trying to find the science to help them make decisions.
And with that, on behalf of the National Conference of State Legislatures, I want to say thank you this afternoon, Professor Osterberg, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Doug.